It's all because of compound interest. And I don't think that is working in your favor, right? So while it may be one of the eight wonders of the world, it depends on whose side you're standing on.
Like, subscribe, and share to Voices of Linden TV.
Hello, lovely folks. Welcome to another Money Minute with Ingrid B. Clayton. Today I'll be talking to you about simple interest versus compound interest. But before I get into the meat of things, before I share some differences between compound interest and simple interest, I want to ask you this question. Don't you think that it is incredibly ironic that Canada and the United States are two of the wealthiest countries in the world, and yet North Americans always seem to have money problems? Before the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, I saw some reports that show that more than one third of Canadians did not have any savings or investment. And for those who have some retirement savings, the average amount saved was less than $60,000. $60,000. How far can $60,000 go to? Many people are living, much longer during their retirement years now. People are living, with the advance in medical technology, people are living 20, 25 years, 30 years, 40 years and beyond, right? So they're spending longer during retirement, but they have less money. And the little pittance that the government is going to give them, through, old age security or CPP in Canada, social security in the US, how far can that really go, right? And things are even more dire in the US. More than 60% of Americans do not have any savings, and more than one third of them were not even paying their bills on time. And sadly enough, more than half of them believe that it is definitely acceptable for them to default on their mortgage if they can't afford to pay it. Isn't that just so bizarre? If you couldn't afford the mortgage, then why did you take the home? So many North Americans are living from paycheck to paycheck. The impact of that, you could see that the severe impact of that was seen during the pandemic. Were it not for the government's COVID relief benefits, some people could not even feed their families. But can you totally blame them though? Did school teach us about personal finance? Did school teach us about financial management? I know nobody taught me that. I had to learn all of that on my own. And that too, I find rather ironic because school teaches us how to become employees, how to make money, perhaps so that the government coffers could be filled up with the taxes that we have to pay. But still, the saying, money makes the world go round. And we need money. Everything that we need, we have to have money to buy it. Even water, we have to pay for those water bills. And yet nobody teaches us how to manage our money. A whopping 40% across both borders are carrying credit card debt from month to month. Some people are even using credit cards to supplement their income. And they will never be able to pay off those debts, even into their retirement. Many don't even realize that credit cards are compound interest. Some people don't even understand compound interest. And the interest is compounded daily when you carry a balance. So until a payment is made, the interest just keeps growing and growing and growing. So this brings us to compound interest. Albert Einstein said compound interest is one of the greatest wonders of the world. And the effect of compound interest on your money can be demonstrated using the rule of 72. Now, I agree with Einstein. However, there's a caveat, and I'll share that later. Now, the rule of 72 says if you divide 72 by the rate of return that you're getting on your investment, the result tells you the amount of years it will take for your money to double. So let's think about an example. let's say nowadays you see the banks advertising like 3% GICs in the US, probably just CODs, 3% interest on those savings. Now, if we take 72 and we divide by 3, we get 24. So what does that mean? If you were to invest $10,000 at 3% compound interest, it will take 24 years for your money to grow to 20,000. Think about that. 24 years. That is like 2/3 of an employee's working years, right? So 2/3 of your life you've been working that it takes at $10,000 to double. Is that a great investment? I don't think so. I really don't think so. So while at 3% may seem attractive, and it may be attractive compared to the 0.5% that we were seeing before COVID, right? It is still not that great, right? And this is how people sometimes, because they do not understand, they think that they buy into these things, right? And they think that they're moving ahead when in fact they're not, right? Or the pace is so slow. It's like snail pace. You'll never get there, right? And so let's say the interest rate was 10% instead, which is much more sensible, right? With the rate of inflation at 8%. If you divide 72 by 10, you get 7.2. So that means it will take 7.2 years for your $10,000 to grow to 20,000. Isn't that much better? Definitely, right? So I want my money to grow much faster. And so the higher your interest rate, the better your growth on your investment. And that's what you should always aim for. But while compound interest may be great, right? And maybe one of the great wonders of the world, according to Albert Einstein, it only works in your favor for savings and investment. Compound interest is your enemy when it comes to loan. Any loan or debt whose interest is compounded will put you at a great disadvantage. Why is that? With compound interest, the interest is calculated on the loan amount, we call the principal, but also on prior interest that is accrued. Plus, interest can be compounded daily, weekly, monthly, and so on, which accelerates the interest accrues and increases the effective annual interest rate. This is why most people will pay close to twice the value of their homes in mortgage payments by the time the home is paid off. And also why most people who carry a balance on their credit cards will always have credit card debt. It's all because of compound interest. And I don't think that is working in your favor, right? So while it may be one of the 8 wonders of the world, it depends on whose side you're standing on, right? Simple interest is way more advantageous when it comes to loans. And why is that? With simple interest, the calculation is done on the principal only. So interest is calculated on principal only. No interest is calculated on any previous interest that is accrued. And the calculation is tied to a fixed interest rate, right? Unlike compound interest, the effective annual interest rate could be higher because it's compounded daily, right? So you end up paying more than what the annual rate is. And this is why lines of credit are better if you have a recurring loan. Why? Because the cost of borrowing of, say, if you have $5,000, you take $5,000 in loan on a line of credit, and you take that same $5,000 on a credit card, the cost of borrowing on your line of credit will be much cheaper than that on your credit card. And also keep in mind, with lines of credit, the interest rate much lower than credit cards, right? Because with lines of credit, you can get interest rate of prime plus 0.5, prime plus 1, 2, etc. The rate that you get will often is based on your credit, your credit score. So the better your credit score, the better the rate you'll get for your loans, right? And that's why it's always good to have good credit scores, right? So having a line of credit in your arsenal is always it's always a good idea, right? As it definitely helps you to save some money if 1 month you're unable to pay off your credit card bill in full, because then you can move that over onto your line of credit where the interest rate is much cheaper. So to wrap up, Compound interest is definitely, one of the great wonders of the world, but only when it comes to savings and investments, right? When it comes to loan, it is your enemy. Simple interest is way better, right? It would save you a whole lot of money on interest. So this is where I will take my leave today. Until next time, walk good.